Floor is
I'm
yours,
not
sir.
ready. I'm not ready.
Floor is yours. Since you
uh,
said you were ready.
no, I was messing with you. I was actually looking for my Celtics. Oh, there's the flag right up there. Yeah. So I'm Leroy. That's Michael. This is the We Tryin' channel, a Nerdy by Nature Productions.
Have we done something since they had won? No.
No, no.
No. Okay.
You cowardly slinked off because you did not want to face the wrath of this Celtics fan, being a non-Celtics fan. I warned you that this was going to
I
happen.
truly don't care.
Um, you say that now, but I know that you were secretly inside your heart rooting for the Dallas Mavericks
Okay.
because that was probably one of the duty stations your dad was at, and you probably lived there. And you secretly, are a Mark Cuban fan and Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. And I just want you to know, and for all those people out there who doubted us, who were naysayers, who looked at the regular season and thought it was a fluke, we see you. And right now, we have the most titles of any NBA team. Boom. Suck on these. So now that we've
That's
gotten that out of the way,
like, comment, and subscribe, and we welcome all.
for those of you who are Heat fans,
Yeah.
for those of you who are Lakers fans, you're going to stay losing. You're always losers, and the only thing you got going for you is you a messy franchise. Boom. I said it.
So what are we talking about?
So let's get to why we're here. We're here to talk about Superman.
The Boy Scout.
He has been referred to as a Boy Scout. In 2025, the Gunniverse kicks off their the Warner Brothers kind of a soft reboot. Decides that they're going to do a Superman movie. The date is July 11th, 2025. It stars Millie Alcock as Kara Zor-El, also known as Supergirl, Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, Rachel Brosnan as Lois Lane, Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen, Perry White as Wendell Pierce, excuse me, Max Lord as Sean Gunn, Michaela Hoover
Wait,
is
Sean
Cat
Gunn
Grant.
is Max Lord?
Yes.
Okay.
Max.
It's like,
Yep.
yeah. Yep.
Frank Grillo is Rick Flag. Nicholas Holt is Lex Luthor, and David Cornsweet is Clark Kent. And
Question for you.
yes,
Where did you read this cast list from?
I'm on IMDb.
Did you read it that way on purpose?
Yes.
Okay. Because like, this
So
is
I wanted-
weird that you
so
didn't
I-
lead with the Superman.
I didn't. I wanted to get to that because I like the idea that he is and I did leave off who was playing Mr. Fantastic, and I'm trying to get his name right now. I know the face. I never remember his name. Anyway, the reason why I bring it up is because a picture just was released recently of an on-set picture was released, and I thought it was very interesting that it garnered all of this attention about like the trunks and and I just thought it was very interesting that the Gunniverse is going to kick off with its big blockbuster as being Superman, and that's what the Snyderverse kicked off with Superman, and I just wanted to know from you, why do you think they do that, and why does it always seem to be we can't get Superman right?
Oh, you're definitely asking I feel like I should ask you those questions. I don't
No,
know.
no, no. The reason why I asked that of you is because you are not steeped in this fight of Superman should be. You're a movie fan. You're a movie critic. You've read some stuff, but you're not like deep in the lore. So you have been watching what Marvel has done and what Warner Brothers has done, and I just want your opinion, your take on what's been going on with the Man of Steel and where you think his place is now, considering where DC is.
I think the issue is, or one of the issues is, when Marvel first started doing their movies, not the MCU, but when Marvel was leasing their properties out to people, whether Fox had control of X-Men or Daredevil or Fantastic Four and all that stuff, and Blade, the people who were making those movies, they weren't necessarily comic book fans. They were just people who saw an opportunity to make money, the people who were making those things. And then Marvel kind of brought all that stuff back, and you had Kevin Feige, who liked comics and is a fan of the actual source material. and so you got stuff that was more representational of the comic books.
Is that a
And I
word?
think it's going to be today. Representative. There we go. Representative. That's the word I was looking for. Representative of the comic books.
Okay.
And what you have now is for Warner Brothers, not counting um, Gunn and whoever the other guy is. That's over.
Saffron.
Yeah, not counting those guys, but like
Mhm.
the Zaslavs and whatever, and all those people. I don't necessarily know that they're comic book fans. I think they're like, oh, here's money.
I
So
don't
in
even
their
think they're.
mind,
I don't even think Zazov's a movie fan.
well, whatever
So,
he is, he's a money fan.
that he
Now,
is.
yes,
He's a
and I think
he's a money man.
in that sense, his thing is, oh, we can make money off of Batman because he seems more marketable. Because maybe people are, it's easier to understand Batman because he's has dubious and he's not always good all the time. And it seems like maybe to some people the idea of somebody who's always good can be boring, and so they don't see like the inherent drama that can be with that. If
Mm.
that makes sense.
Uh, partially. So I guess my question is, do you feel like they've diverted to Batman because he's a more popular character, or do you think he's an easier character to write?
I think they believe that he might be an easier character to display to other people. Like you can kind of get his stuff and you can see where his rogues gallery and stuff like that. And Superman may be hard because Superman is this super being, this god. He's all powerful. His one weakness that people know is kryptonite. So it's kind of like, okay, you got the one weakness. How do you write around that? And people have done it for years, but
Mhm.
those aren't the same people who are running Warner Brothers.
Okay. I can see that. I just I, I've wondered why, and and maybe one day we'll get this, and I hope we do get big enough. Like, comment, and subscribe. That I could actually ask Zack Snyder this question: why he decided to start with Man of Steel. I personally love Man of Steel, and I want to say that if you are new to this channel, you can go back. I believe I was the first to coin the term Cavillites. I've been a Henry Cavill fan since he stepped on the
Forever.
stage. Yeah, I've been in his corner for just about all of the stuff that he's done. I
Did
like
you like him in Count of Monte Cristo?
I did. I honestly did not realize that was him because I
Yeah,
was like, that's not the bulky,
right.
like. Damn.
He was a little boy then.
So here's the funny thing: as big as Henry Cavill is, and I haven't seen it yet. Guy Pearce's Ungentlemanly, whatever movie, I forget what it's called. I was watching some of the footage of them standing next to each other.
Not Guy
Alan,
Pearce.
no, Guy Ritchie. You're right.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, yeah,
Um, Alan
yeah.
Richson.
He's huge.
Good.
That's
I
that's
thought
that's a big
Henry
man.
Cavill was big.
Yeah,
I thought Henry Cavill was big. It was like it's like that meme when you look at Shaq and then you look at Yao Ming and you're like, oh,
hmm
you're a giant. Um, but anyway, I would love to know why he went that way as far as like starting with Man of Steel, doing Batman versus Superman, and then getting to Justice League, and like why he fought to get Man of Steel done, and why James Gunn is starting with Superman, when all of the evidence points to they would rather do Batman. Like when you think about, and Man of Steel was released in 2013. I want to say in the history of, and that so what's 11 years,
hmm
um, and we've gotten one movie since then that was focused on Superman, but it had to have Batman in it. And it's like, why didn't you do a Man of Steel 2? Like, why didn't you build that up? And I'm just wondering, why he seems to be so hard to write for. But then I realized that it's not just movie executives that seem to be it's hard to write for. Do you have it to where you could pull it up, that text that I sent you on here, or is that too hard to pull up? Because I can read it.
Give me a second. You can keep talking to me.
Well, okay, so the reason and part of the reason why this came up was Eric Larson, who, if you don't know, is one of the original 7 founders of Image Comics. He's the creator of Savage Dragon. He on Threads, he posted, and I want to get it correct. He kind of caused a kerfuffle. So this is a man, I believe Eric Larson is 61 years old. He's written a variety. He's drawn a variety of books. He has his own creator-owned series. He's very well known for Savage Dragon and an artist on Amazing Spider-Man. He wrote on Threads, "No version of Lois Lane in the comics, TV shows, cartoons, or movies has ever made me understand why Superman is so into her." And it caused an entire thread of like Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And to the point where he actually had to like kind of back up and backtrack a little bit of explaining, I haven't watched everything. Because people were coming for him, like, why have you read this? Have you watched this? Why did you not see this? And I thought it was very interesting that here's somebody who's in comics, a prolific creator, who didn't get one of the core elements to the mythos that is Superman. So
let's see. I'm
and I
trying to
wanted
figure out how long ago. Oh, here it is. Let me see if I can pull this up.
Yeah. And I kind of wanted your take on, do you see his point, or do you disagree? Like, where are you coming at this? Like, when I sent that to you, what was your thought?
I like Lois Lane. I like the character of Lois Lane.
But I guess, do you understand why let me back up, because there's a conversation I had with Andre at work, friend of the show. We were going back and forth, and he was saying, and he was talking about he had watched a there it is. Yes, thank you. He was listening to a podcast or watched a video, and one of the guys was very upset and saying he's paraphrasing what the channel was, but the idea was Lois Lane wasn't interested in Clark Kent. She was interested in Superman. And the guy who was articulating was very upset that here's everything that she said that she wanted, and it was right there in her face, and she didn't want that. She wanted the unattainable super god. And basically what he was trying to articulate was that there's a problem with women, that they have a good guy right here, a regular guy right there in their face, and they always will choose the unattainable, that where you have to jump through hoops to be this thing to catch this woman. And I said, that's very telling, because if you know the character Superman and Clark Kent, Clark Kent is who he is, but he purposefully made himself clumsy, very, I don't want to say unattractive, but he purposely did not act the way he could have acted to divert attention from himself, so no one would suspect that he is Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And he was working with one of the world's most foremost and world-renowned reporters, so he had to do everything he could to throw off suspicion. And it's almost as if people who look at Superman, it's a mirror for what you think and what you believe the character should be, because how you think. And I think people aren't looking at the character himself and saying, this is why it's so hard to be Superman, because if you had that power, you would be a dick. Does that make sense? Like, they're mad that Superman or Clark Kent isn't Superman all the time, in the sense of, oh, you could have pulled Lois Lane if you'd have just done this. But it's like, that defeats the whole purpose of him having the alter ego to hide and have a regular life, while also doing the noble thing of protecting humanity. Does that make sense?
Do you remember the Kill Bill monologue that
Which one?
David Carradine did about Superman?
No.
I'm trying to look that up
Refresh my
now.
memory. But
It's at the end where him and Uma Thurman are. That is David Carradine, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, make sure.
Kung Fu. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They are talking before they have their fight, and she's talking about like Bill saying what comic books he likes, and he always likes Superman because Superman Kal-El essentially is Superman. That's who he is. But people always say Superman was a costume, but really Clark Kent is a costume.
Yes.
I'm trying to find the words from the monologue. It's really good. Once you started talking about that, it reminded me that I just can't find the monologue anywhere specifically. But chat, check that out. I mean, it's a fun movie overall, but also it's a good speech from
Not a family
David
movie.
Carradine. Not a family movie, but
Yeah.
it's a good speech talking about this Superman versus Clark Kent.
But it really when we were talking about it, I was like, it really goes to show you that people put their own take on it to a certain extent instead of looking at the essence of the character. Clark Kent, the young man raised by Martha and John Kent, is essentially a kid from the Midwest who's trying to do the right thing while also hiding who he is so that he can have a normal life. And I think that to me that's an interesting thing that is not that hard to write. If you get what I'm saying. Like that aspect of it is not that hard to write of like trying to date while also trying to stop this bank robbery. Like to me all of those things would would be great on screen and I just don't get the like when you really boil down the character, he's an immigrant from another culture who came here who was raised by the all-American Midwestern parents who goes to the big city to live out his dream, to make it on his own. And as he's doing that, he becomes friends, chums with so many different people, but also falls for someone who literally could make his life hell. And I think that's a very good story to tell, but also, especially in this day and age, his mortal enemy is a man who has all of the power in the world and he can't touch him. Like
Mhm.
he physically can, but the morals and the guidelines that he lives by stops him from snapping this man's neck. And I think what has happened with Superman is that everybody doesn't understand that. And I think that's the one thing that everybody had a problem with in Man of Steel. That idea that he killed Zod and he couldn't find a way to not kill. And I think that's the biggest problem a lot of people have with Man of Steel. And I get it. I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, no, no, no. Like, I get it. But I think that's the thing. What made Injustice so popular? I think that's the thing. What made Man of Steel and the Snyderverse so popular, and I think that's what made some of these other iterations of evil Superman, Brightburn, The Boys with Homelander, because they want if they had that power, these are the things that they would do. And I think that's a very interesting take
So
or when you think about who's actually doing it, who's actually talking about the character,
mhm.
they're actually telling you who they are if they had this power.
So then, question for you: do you think in the world 2024 that we live in now, the character of Superman still rings? Does it still
Yes.
resonate for people?
Oh, even more now. I think I think I think in this day and age, I think the idea of who Superman is more important now than any other time than we've had before. When you see the attacks on journalism, when you see the attacks on the press, when you see we're arguing right now about what is a journalist. You know, um, uh, I I find it very interesting that it's hard that people find it hard to tell Superman's story, and I also find it interesting because we've talked about this numerous times. When Batman versus Superman was announced and Captain America, um,
Civil
was
War.
it Civil War was announced, Warner Brothers moved Batman versus Superman.
Hmm.
And I think for two reasons. One, they were scared of the MCU. And two, they realized Batman versus Superman wasn't that good. I think those two things, but the thing that kills me is that S on Superman's chest is so recognizable. And Warner Brothers blinked. And and again, I'm not knocking the MCU. That's not what I'm saying. If you look at the history of comics and the characters of Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, in comics, they were always B tiered characters. Superman and Batman, those symbols are recognized all over the world.
Hmm.
And Warner Brothers, with the two most recognizable comic characters, two of the most recognizable comic characters, balked and moved their date.
But do you also think that's because they weren't looking at just comic book people watching these movies, right?
That's my point. You had Batman versus Superman. You that's my point. You had two of the most up until that point. I would wager, yes, Captain America, very popular character now. But at that time, would you say Captain America, if we did a poll, if you did a survey, and we know those sites, Survey Monkey, Ipsos, whatever you want to use, Rasmussen, if you had polled people and you just showed the symbol, the S on the chest and the bat, those two symbols to me are more recognizable than Captain America is. And that's the movie that moved. And I just find that fascinating.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think it's goes back to the idea of the people that are running Warner Brothers don't necessarily know the property, right? They just see dollar signs. They're not really concerned about whether or not it's good. There's like, oh, can we make money off of this? And they don't necessarily know the inherent value of that stuff.
Well, I wonder if it's one of those things where, and we've talked about this before, you have people on staff, but because they are either comic writers or Bruce Tim, they work in animation, their voices don't ring as loud as maybe an executive or somebody else. And I guess when I bring up Superman, and the reason why I say it, he's one of the most recognizable and iconic characters. Do you remember when this happened? How old
And
were
what
you when the
happened?
death of Superman happened?
What year did that come out?
Uh, I on the spot. Hold on, let me look. This was published in '93.
93. So I would have been in third grade. I don't know what
Yeah.
year that is
Okay.
or what age I would have been. Was that nine, third grade,
I don't know. I'm just so I, like
eight, nine?
I remember when this happened. I remember when this dropped. I remember collecting the comics. I remember watching news stories and it being such a huge thing. Um, yes, other characters have died. Other characters, and Superman died and came back, but that was such a big deal. And it's like for that to have been such a big deal, and for him, and when you see the on-screen portrayal of everything that happened, it's very interesting when you have, and I'll say, like to me, to this is one of the best stories ever told. Kingdom Come. I don't know if the glare is there.
I
Um,
can we can see it.
okay, Kingdom Come. I have this in so I have this in a softcover edition. I have this in the Ultimate Edition. I even have the original issues. I've actually had to go back and buy them because not friend of the show, Don Polite. I'm joking. When I bought them, he stole them from me, and was like, "What you would do?"
Somebody jacked your comics?
Oh yeah,
All right.
yeah. That was my mentor too, Don. um, but yeah, I think Kingdom Come is one of the greatest stories ever. Not just comic. I think it's an amazing story, and it's just interesting that you have this character, um, and you have so many stories that you could tell, and they don't. You can't really tell that one. That's All Star Superman. Uh, so, what do you think? Why do you believe Superman is the first movie in James' first blockbuster movie? It's not the first property he's going to make. I think the Commandos is the one he's doing first, that animation series that comes out later this year. Why do you think this Superman is so important for the Gunniverse?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the North Star of the universe, right? I feel like that kind of points the direction of where the universe is going to go because is the DC Trinity still Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman? That's
Yeah,
still them? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That hasn't changed. I guess what I'm saying
So
is,
yeah, right. So I'm saying that to say I feel like in his mind he needs to establish what the ultimate good is, and I think that is Superman. So from there, you once you have your ultimate goods, you can establish what your ultimate bad's going to be. So in my mind, I feel like okay, you establish what the parameters are for Superman. This is the guy who's the paragon of virtue and everything, and from there you can
Mhm.
build up and everything else, and you can get into like here's some bad, here's even more bad, and here's somebody who's maybe not necessarily good or who's more good than bad, but maybe a little more dubious. Maybe you have a Batman who does things a little bit differently than what you have from Superman.
Okay. Edie Gathagy. That's yeah. I can never say his name correctly.
Nobody
That's
can.
who's playing. That's who's playing Mr. Terrific. He was Darwin and X Men First Class.
Hmm, hmm.
Yeah, he's the brother playing Mr. Terrific, which I'm very happy he's going to be on screen. Uh, but anyway, uh, that's an interesting take. I do see part of that. Um,
Well, nerd, tell me the real reason.
no. I don't know the real reason. I do see part of that because I think one of the things that um, if you've been paying attention to the casting and who are in the movie with Superman, the for those who are comic nerds, you do see some of the casting surrounding or some of the characters that are surrounding that will be introduced in the Superman movie is some of the authority figures uh, from Grant Morrison, no, from Mark Miller's run and Warren Ellis's run. The engineer, um, some of those authority characters, and they came on the tail end of the 90s where they were. So there, Joe Casey did a very good story about like Superman was played out, and there was these characters who were like, "We're the edge." You remember everything was like, what was it? What was the drink of the 90s? It wasn't Mount,
Surge
like yes, like that whole surge, you know,
when
X
everything was to
Games
the
were
extreme.
popular. Yes. So you had these guys who were like, we're the I'm trying to remember what their name is. What the Joe Casey run, what he did. Where basically you had these guys who were like, we're extreme, we kill, and we do all this stuff, and it's like
Is
Superman's
that
a Boy
Carnage
Scout.
in Marvel?
No, it's
No.
a little
Okay.
different. Because like Carnage is a bad guy, but they were good guys masquerading as they were not masquerading, but there's like that whole anti-hero thing. So and at the end of the story, Superman proved why he's Superman
Hmm.
and why he's such an important character. And I wonder, is James Gunn introducing those characters, those authority characters, because they very are hard edge, take no prisoners. We do some of the dirty work to get stuff done. The ends justify the means type characters. And I think Superman has never been that character.
Hmm.
Um, I think I'm wondering, I'm positing this to you. Why do you believe the anti Superman, the Homelanders, the Justice Lords from the animated series are so popular? Or Brightburn was popular, was a great idea. Financially, it wasn't popular, but why are those characters, that the idea of an evil Superman, so popular?
I think the idea for some people of being able to live out a fantasy of having all this power and doing whatever you want is kind of cool for some people. Like, oh, so this is fun to do whatever. Um, but when you say popular, you mean, what do you mean popular? You mean like, because I don't think people are looking at the boys and saying, oh, like I don't think anybody's looking at Homelander as being the ultimate good guy in there, right?
You have not been keeping up, buddy.
I
There,
don't feel like I
yeah,
know there are people there, but I don't think the mass audience says Homelander is the good guy of the boys.
I'm. I'll say this. I was, and the creator of the show has said it himself, or the showrunner has said he is shocked by the. He is shocked by the shock of people who thought or identified with Homelander and did not understand that Homelander is the bad guy. And so that that's why I said, when you look at the archetype that is Superman, and you look at Injustice, and you look at this idea of an evil Superman, or a Superman who's gone off the rails, it does it. That's why I said he's such a mirror. He's such a mirror for who you are as a person. Like, Batman is one of my, if is it's in my top five of favorite characters of all time, just because of the psychosis that is Batman and Bruce Wayne, and because I think he is the opposite of Superman,
Sure.
whereas Clark Kent is actually who Superman, Kal El, really is, and Superman is this archetype that you see, but he would rather be Clark Kent and doing the things that Superman does, but he created that person so that he could do those things that he can't do in his regular life. Whereas the opposite of Batman, where Batman is the person Bruce Wayne really is. Bruce Wayne is just the skin he wears during the regular hours to interact with humans, because he really is Batman.
Hmm.
That he's created that, and he has gone so far on the other side of the spectrum, and I think that's a very interesting character. Um, but Superman is in the top five for me as far as characters, and I just, it's funny that, because you see these stories, like, this is a great one. Pick this up, um, from Jean Lun Yang. I can never say that person's name, so I'm not even going to attempt, because the art is amazing. But that's another one. Superman versus the Klan. This is a three-issue, like, handheld graphic novel series. Um, awesome book. That's why I said I do believe the injustice, Justice Lord's Homelander idea is popular, and I I've always wondered why. because and I say this and this is where I want you to be like, and seriously think about it. We're living in an age where there are people in politics who have gone into politics not because of what they can do for people, but because what they can do to people. Like there seems to be a meanness and a cruelty in our politics right now, and that seems to be echoed in the things that those people like, and Homelander being one of them. And then the tables being turned on them that Homelander's the bad guy, and he's not a very good person. And it's like, how did you miss that from the first episode when he left those people in the plane?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I said, why does it seem that that is more popular or more identifiable than the Boy Scout?
I think people like the idea of having an outlet to vent their rage and just let out their aggressions.
Really?
I think so. I think some people are like that.
Okay. I'm honestly asking. I just because I love the stories when told right about Superman. Like Kingdom Come is one of my favorite stories of all time. Like
Can you give us a synopsis for people who are unfamiliar?
I will read the back of it.
Okay.
Um, oh wait, that doesn't have a back. Uh, but hold on, I'll pull it up because I want to give you something without like giving it away.
Okay. So I
Um,
found the quote from Kill Bill. I'll read that while you find
go
the
ahead, go
thing.
ahead.
So this was Bill talking to the bride before they have their
Mhm.
final fight. I can't remember exactly what up, but this is what Bill says. Superman didn't become Superman. Superman was born Superman. When Superman wakes up in the morning, he's Superman. His alter ego is Clark Kent. His outfit with the big red S, that's the
Mhm.
blanket he was wrapped in as a baby when the Kents found him. Those are his clothes. What Kent wears, the glasses, the business suit, that's the costume. That's the costume Superman wears to blend in with us. Clark Kent is how Superman views us. And what are the characteristics of Clark Kent? He's weak. He's unsure of himself. He's a coward. Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race.
And see, yes, thank you. And that is why I think he's so hard to write because I think for certain people, because that's not true.
Now, to
I
be
just
fair,
can't
sorry,
go ahead.
yes,
I know exactly what you're about to say, but go
it
ahead. I
is
want
not true, but also when Quentin Tarantino wrote that, he was writing that from Bill's perspective. So that's how
yes,
Bill views it. Bill has it
but
wrong.
that's not just how Bill views it. That's why I said that the people who were like when Andre was talking about this podcast, he was listening to these guys he was listening to. That's how they view it. They view it as Clark Kent is the weak, and that's how like Superman doesn't view us as weak. He views us as we're human, and just like him, he makes mistakes, and just like any race of people, there are good and bad. You take the good, you take the bad. Oh man, I almost started singing the facts of life. I really did. But I don't think they see the fact of it's not that Clark Kent is weak. It's just that he does not use his strength to dominate others.
Mhm.
And somebody like Bill, who is a serial killer, who is a terrible human being, by the way. Let's look at who this person is. That's how he views the character
Mhm.
because that's who he is as a person. He's a terrible human. So, given those powers, who is a terrible human? Look at what Bill has done with no powers.
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
So that's and that's why I said I think this to me Superman is such an interesting character because of who he is, and I think also too it's he was he naturally is strong. He naturally is all these things, these unattainable things that people believe that they have a right to. And the person who is Clark Kent, aka Superman, doesn't even use it. And it's like you're wasting all of that. Um, so You asked me about the synopsis of Kingdom Come.
Hmm.
Here it is. In the near future world of Kingdom Come, superheroes are ubiquitous, but heroism is rare. After decades as Earth's champions, the members of the Justice League have all retreated out of the public eye, replaced with a new generation of crime fighters whose brand of justice leaves humanity terrified rather than inspired. But with the planet's future in jeopardy, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman must come out of retirement to make one last stand for truth and justice. So here's the premise. Superman and Lois got married. Lois is killed. I won't say by who. And after everything that happens, Superman retreats and retires. Um, he retires. Wonder Woman and Batman still do their thing. They're still out there doing their thing. Batman kind of turns into a fascist. Uh, but something happens to tip the scales to where they need Superman to come back. And the idea is, how do you get a man who has given up on humanity to come back, who was honestly the best example of humanity?
Hmm.
If you and that's the thing that I think people forget. Here's a here's someone who could have dominated the planet and bent it to his will. That's exactly what Zod was trying to do in Man of Steel. He was going to do that. He was going to rape the planet of its resources, establish new Krypton, use the Ark to seed the planet and take it over. Superman could have done that. Kal-El could have easily done that. There was nothing to stop him. But instead, he lived among us. He walked with us. And I thought that was such a very interesting idea of Superman is the best of us, to the point when you look at every iteration, whether it's animation, comics, my favorite thing is, I don't know if you've ever watched it. Um, it's the one where Darkseid tries to kidnap Supergirl, Zora, Kara-El, and Batman puts Hellspores in the armory of Darkseid,
Hmm.
and Darkseid basically tries to kill him. And he says, if you swear to leave Supergirl alone, I won't detonate the Hellspores. And Darkseid is livid, almost beats him to a pulp. And then at the end of it, he's holding him over the apocalypse lava pits, and he smiles and he smirks and throws him to the ground. And he said, if anyone else had done that, I wouldn't have believed him. If Superman had done it, if Wonder Woman had done it, I wouldn't have believed him. He said, but you are the one, your species would kill its own to win.
Hmm.
And I thought that was such an interesting indictment of who Batman is versus who a Superman is. Whereas even Superman, if you go back and watch the animated series that came on, because that was part of one of their Warner Brothers just one-off movies where they adapt a comic series. Whereas you look at and you saw Batman fighting Darkseid with Lex Luthor, and then at the end of season 2 of Justice League Unlimited, Superman said, Batman is the best of us. That Superman sees the best in Batman in the face of Darkseid. And he's like, with you, I can let loose. I always have to walk on eggshells. I always have to be a protector. But with you, I can let it all out because you can take it. And I think that's a very interesting, when people who write Superman who get it, it's amazing to watch them write him.
So you're saying all this. What do you hope James Gunn does with Superman?
I hope James Gunn does with Superman what the MCU did with Captain America. Because at the end of it, Captain America was right. Tony was the smartest. Tony was the one who was like, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do that. And Captain America, Steve Rogers was like, we either win together or we fail together. We don't shortcut, we don't sacrifice, we win as a team. And I think that idea of, again, because remember, Captain America is a Boy Scout from the 50s, frozen in time, World War II, all of that, Americana brought to this new millennia, and he was a fish out of water. That's what Superman kind of is. This kid from the Midwest who comes to the big city, who is attempting to adapt while also has the power of a god. It's just like trying to date, trying to find out who he is. I would like to see that approach with Superman. I would like to see that approach of here's this guy who's grappling with all of these. Like, humans have a hard time just dealing with being human. Just the regular, I got to pay bills, I got to do this, I got to do that. Imagine if you could see and use your powers to just tip the scales a little bit, get more money so you could pay rent. Like, think about all the flight, super strength, invulnerability, super hearing, x-ray vision, and you never use it. You see what I'm saying? Like that idea of the restraint to not use that and just be selfish.
Right.
And I
Okay.
think that to me is what I would like to see.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there are any final thoughts you have on that, or was
Hold on
that
one
was
second.
your okay?
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, hold on. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
What I thought.
Oh, okay. All right, folks. Something's about to happen from Leroy. I don't know if he's getting something, another prop, or if he is doing something with his children. I don't know. We're about to find out. Oh,
All right, talk for me. Can you hear me?
yeah. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, this is great, folks. I don't know what's happening right now. Leroy is testing out audio equipment because he had good speakers and then they went away. I don't know.
Audio. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep. So go ahead.
No, I was saying, was that your final thought? We could wrap up.
Yeah, I mean that to me, that's where I would like to see with the character. And I apologize for the audio problems. This is just this is what happens when you use government equipment.
Hey, man, y'all want us to get away from government equipment and have better stuff. So Leroy has better audio and I have non-flickering stuff behind me. Be sure to like and subscribe, get these numbers up so we can make money off this channel
Yeah,
and give y'all the best product that we can.
well, just money enough that we can, have some sustainability stuff. What would you like to see with the character? Like, I mean, I mean, when the movie comes out, you're going to see it with just the knowledge that you have. What would be?
I just need to be entertained.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any high hopes for Superman. Again, he's not a character because we've clearly established. I dabble in comics. I don't know comics in and out like you do, so I don't have this attachment to anybody in particular. So just give me a movie that's entertaining. Give me the idea of Superman is this good guy. Superman is this, again, a paragon of virtue or whatever, and just let him do what he needs to do. Let Lois Lane have some cool scenes. I'm excited that it's Rachel Brosnahan or however you pronounce her name, because I really liked her from Marvelous Miss Maisel. So
That's your
just
girl. That's
yeah,
your girl.
let me have them have good chemistry, and let it be kind of quirky because it's Gunn doing it. So that's all I need.
Okay.
Oh, and also let it be good enough that it gets me excited for the rest of the universe. Like, ooh, okay, he did this. Now let's see what else we're going to get from other DC characters.
Uh, we'll end on this. I really like that take. With everything going on, who do you think is more recognizable now, Superman or Goku?
I'm probably biased. I would say Goku.
And that's why I'm so disappointed in Warner Brothers for that answer, because I agree with you. I agree with you, and I am a Superman fan. I
Mhm.
agree with you, and that is the failure that is Warner Brothers. That
Okay.
is the failure that is laid at the doorstep of acquaintance of the show, David Zasloff. Um, I wouldn't say friend of the show because I've got my problems. Now, Zasloff, if you're watching this and you allow us to interview you, you can be a friend of the show.
You can be a friend.
We will upgrade you to a friend of the show. But I agree with you 2000%. Goku right now is more recognizable than Superman, and that is the problem. So, with that being said, I'm Leroy. That's Michael. We apologize for the audio issues. It almost made it 50 minutes. It almost did,
It
boys
almost
and
did.
girls. So, with that, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit us up in the chat. What's your favorite Superman story? What is your favorite iteration of Superman? Is it in comics? Is it Kingdom Come? That's the right answer. All Star Superman? Is it Man of Steel? Is it? I mean, we have so many different iterations of Superman to choose from. What's yours? Hit me up in the comments because I'll be the one to answer them.
Peace.
Deuces.